Alright, hello ladies and gentlemen, it's Maverick96 again, back in second video, and I'm flying the A6M2, I believe it is the mod 21 in this one, War Thunder doesn't actually tell you, Zero. And Zero was a great plane for its time, very maneuverable, average speed, pretty good, and very actually high tech. Anyways, let's start off. I decided I'm going to try and make my videos a little bit educational. I was going to do some information on the battle that happened at Zhengzhou, at this river. Couldn't really find a huge amount on that, unfortunately. So I'm just going to tell you guys about the Zero here. Start off with the name, actually. The Zero is known from its designation, which was a Type 0 naval fighter, and that 0 came from the last digit of the year when it entered service, which in our years was 1940, and commonly used years anyways. But in Imperial years, it was 2600. Go back a little bit further than us. But before the Zero, its predecessor was the A5M, which was a maneuverable small plane. It was pretty zippy. It was a good plane, but it just wasn't great. It couldn't stand up to what they needed it to do. So the Japanese Navy set out a couple of requirements, and the requirements were a little something like this. It had to be able to fly for 2 hours on a normal power, so about 100% power setting. Can't really test that in here, and I'm sorry I have a couple technological issues here. Anyways, and 6 to 8 hours at economy power, so a bit lower power, just running, trying to get from point A to point B. They also had their requirements for the armament were two 20mm cannons, of course, in the wings, great guns, and two 7.7 or 303 caliber machine guns. Now, the machine guns, as you can see, if you look in the cockpit view of the Zero in this game, they're kind of pushed up into the cockpit, and they did that mostly in the interest of keeping the plane compact and small so they could keep it light and maneuverable. Now, they also had to add a complete radio set to this plane for long-range communications and just basic communications even. Along with an RDF for long-range navigation. RDF stands for Radio Directional Finder, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. A bunch of plane nuts out there, and hell, I'm a plane nut, but I haven't done any sort of ground school stuff in a while, nor have I flown in a while, unfortunately. Anyways, and the way it essentially works is you shoot one big radio beam out in one direction, and you kind of get your plane on that, and you ride the beam. And your plane has a little indicator that will tell you whether you're left or right of it, or dead center. And it gets really complicated if you're traveling and you have to take two different RDF beams, or two different RDF beacons, and because you have to ride one until your RDF system kind of goes wonky, and that'll tell you essentially that you've intersected with the other one if you've done your math correctly and you know how long you should have been flying before you intersected the other one. And then you turn around and you get onto the other one and you ride that to your destination. Anyways, this plane, one thing that was really cool about it, it actually had its skin was made of a top secret aluminum alloy developed by Sumitomo Industries in Japan, called 7075 aluminum alloy. In this alloy, if you're a gun nut, if you are a metallurgy nut, whatever, you'll know it is used in a lot of applications today. It was really light, it was really strong, but it tended to be pretty brittle and prone to corrosion, which can be easily corrected with anti-corrosive paint, essentially. Just cover it up. But this stuff was very advanced for the time, but very brittle as well, and it caused some issues. Not many, though. It was a great alloy, and it's still used today. Say, if you get an AR-15, if that thing's receiver is milled out of aluminum, it is most likely 7075 because it is so strong. Anyways, there was actually no armor, as most people probably know just from, I guess, rumor and stuff. No armor for the pilot or the engine or the fuel tank, and the fuel tank was not self-sealing, which was actually becoming common at the time that this thing was developed in 1940. But this actually led it to be extremely light and made it the longest range single-engine fighter of World War II, meaning that this thing could take off, fly out probably hundreds of miles, hundreds of kilometers, whatever, fight, win the fight, fly back, land, and do it all over again. But this lack of fire also made it very prone, or this lack of armor, sorry, also made it prone to fires in the fuel tanks from, like, very short bursts. And also, explosions as well. Which, of course, nobody wants their plane to explode mid-flight, or at any time. Anyways, the pilots actually ended up complaining of, like in the very early models, of control forces being way too heavy above 300 kilometers an hour. And control forces meaning this was back before you had really any hydraulics in your plane. So when you turned your yoke or your stick, you were putting that muscle in there to move those ailerons. And so what they did, they actually added servo tabs, and it's a little tab inside, well, not inside, but on the outside of an aileron or elevator or not vertical stabilizer of the rudder. Sorry, had a bit of a brain fart. And essentially, when you turn the control surface doesn't move. And as you can see, I'm kind of chasing down this Yak 9, but I'm out of ammo. Sorry, ADD kicking in. But I like to narrate on the videos too. But I'm just trying to get this guy to fly back to my base and get shot down by AAA, because he's the only guy chasing me now. Anyways, this thing would, these tabs would move in the opposite direction of the aileron that you wanted it to move, and would force the aileron to move in the direction that you wanted it to go through aerodynamics. I'm just going to say aerodynamics and leave it at that, because going into the physics of it is a pain in the ass. Anyways, these lightened control forces that these pilots had to deal with actually ended up with the pilots getting too fancy with their flying, and in rigorous maneuvers, as you can even see later in this video at the end of it, probably my derpiest moment in any video, you could overstress the wings with ease. Like, it was way too quick to overstress in some hard maneuvers, and they broke pretty quickly if you did that. But anyways, in its service, this thing was actually probably one of the best planes out there for quite a while. Just about any Allied fighter could not outturn this, maybe outrun, but outturning was out of the question. I mean, this thing, you guys all know if you've flown the Spitfires in-game, that thing's turn rate is insane. It's amazing. It's a great turn fighter. And this thing could outturn that with ease if you've ever flown one of these or flown against them in-game. Anyways, this increased maneuverability and all of this, in just about all of the Japanese fighters, the Zero, the Kai-43 Oscar, just about most of the Japanese fighters, led to a tactic being developed partially in Burma, China, and India, and that's the boom and zooming tactic. The Flying Tigers with their P-40s, which were faster, could outclimb the Zeros in a zooming climb, and better armor and better armament, could easily just from high altitude zoom down. Very short burst would generally take one of these things out, if you hit it, that is, especially with the 50 cals, and climb back up to altitude and repeat the process, keep doing that and winning. And another tactic that worked really well against it is called the Thatch Weave, and of course Thatch is in game, his Buffalo, his F2A Buffalo premium plane. I'll get more into that tactic later on, but it's essentially playing chicken with your wingman, and if the Zero follows one of you, your wingman or you shoot the Zero down. It's pretty easy. Anyways, I apologize. I'm allergy season, I guess. It's hell right now. Anyways, these planes were great up until stuff like the F6 Hellcat, which was incredible armor. Turn rate was decent, and the speed was great. The P-38 Lightning, that was a great plane. And boom, there goes my wing, just so you know. And that's the end of the match. I wrote a check with my mouth that my wings could not cash. Anyways, Lots of planes that during the end of the war could outfly these things easily, and it essentially came down to pilot's skill. Anyways, it was great talking to you. I wish I had more time, but that's the end of the video. I will see you guys later on, and of course, if you like it, share, like, subscribe. Hopefully there will be more to come, more where that came from, and fly safe.